Ghost Galaxy's crowdfunding campaign for the new Keyforge set, Winds of Exchange, has launched, and it was successfully funded in under 28 minutes. This means that Keyforge is definitely coming back, and hopefully in a big way. There are multiple pledge levels and stretch goals have already been unlocked. The campaign is running until the 26th of September, so follow the link in the description and make sure you get your hands on some Keyforge Winds of Exchange when it releases in early 2023. Hello Keyforgers, welcome back. We are on the third video of the deck opening series now, which means we are into the third set, which is Worlds Collide. I've got a nice disc playmat here, so hopefully we get some nice disc cards. Let's open it up. By nice disc cards, I mean in fairness, because you hate it when it's in your opponent's deck, but you love it when it's in yours. Is this the right way up? Yes, it is. We have Shadows, Star Alliance, and Logos, so no dis. I believe that's Corporal Y Demon Staff. And it looks like a Bug Archon. We'll take a closer look at that. Let's get into it. There is a closer look at Corporal Y Demon Staff. That is a really cool Archon. Star Alliance, Shadows, and Logos. Bottom card comes out. We're flipping over. We're starting out with Star Alliance. We have Fran's Blaster, which is an upgrade. You get an amp when you play it. This creature gains Fight Reap. You may deal 2 damage to a creature or attach Fran's Blaster to First Officer Fran. After you attach Fran's Blaster to First Officer Fran, you move each amber from First Officer Fran to your pool. Tachyon Pulse is an action. You get an amp when you play it. Play. Destroy each artifact. Exhaust each creature with an upgrade. 2 cards that kind of don't work together straight off the bat. There we go. Transporter Platform is an artifact. You get an amp when you play it. Action. Return a friendly creature and each upgrade attached to it to your hand. Nurse Soto, 3 power with Deploy. Play, Fight, Reap. Heal 3 damage from each of Nurse Soto's neighbours. A second Nurse Soto. We have Helmsman Spears, 2 power. Fight Reap, discard any number of cards from your hand. Draw a card for each card discarded this way. Zap is an action. You get an amp when you play it. Play, deal 1 damage to a creature for each house represented among creatures in play. A second Zap. Medic Ingram, 3 power. Play, Fight, Reap. You may heal 3 damage from a creature and ward it. Lieutenant Kar, 5 power, Taunt, think I butchered that, and it's got Hazardous 3. There's First Officer Fran, 4 power, play, Fight, Reap, a friendly creature captures 1 amber. Com Officer Kirby, 3 power, play, Fight, Reap, you may play a non-Star Alliance artifact, upgrade, or action card this turn. We are on to Shadows, starting out with no safety in numbers, which is an action. You get an amp when you play it. Play, deal 3 damage to each creature that belongs to a house that has 3 or more creatures in play. Fidget, 2 power elusive. Reap, discard a random card from your opponent's archives or the top card of their deck. If that card is an action, play it as if it were yours. Dusk Runner is an upgrade. This creature gains Reap, steal 1 amber. Umbra, 2 power with Skirmish with the fight ability of steal 1 amber. A second Umbra. We have Ronnie Wrist Clocks, 2 power, play, steal 1 amber. If your opponent has 7 amber or more, you steal 2 amber instead. Kymor Eclipse is an action, play, shuffle each flank creature into its owner's deck. Hit and Run is an action, play, deal 2 damage to a creature and then return a friendly creature to your hand. Breaker Hill, 1 power with elusive. Each of Breaker Hill's neighbours gains action, steal 1 amber. A second Breaker Hill. There she is, Bad Penny, 1 power, destroyed, return Bad Penny to your hand. Avinda, 4 power, Reap, deal 1 damage to a creature. If this damage destroys that creature, your opponent discards a random card from their hand. That works very well with the Bad Penny. And lastly, on to Logos, we have Pocket Universe, which is an artifact. You may spend amber on Pocket Universe when forging keys. Action, move 1 amber from your pool to Pocket Universe. Mini group Think Tank, 3 power, 2 armor. Play, fight and reap. Deal 8 damage to a creature that shares a house with 2 of its neighbours. Memory Chip is an artifact. After you choose Logos as your active house, archive a card. A second Memory Chip. Data Forge is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. You may forge a key at +10 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand. Wormhole Technician, 3 power. Reap, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a Logos card, play it. Otherwise, archive it. Quant, 3 power. Reap, you may play a non-Logos action card this turn. Hologramophone is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Action, ward a creature. A second Hologramophone. Igor, 2 power. Play. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 to your hand and discard the others. Daughter, 2 power with elusive. During your draw card step, refill your hand to 1 additional card. Babbling Bibliophile, 1 power. Reap, draw 2 cards. That is a nice Logos there. I think there may be a possibility for pulling off that Data Forge key cheat, but let's have a closer look. Alright, so this deck. Yes. Start with the basics. It has 9 printed amber. There are 7 actions, 21 creatures, 6 artifacts, and 2 upgrades. Now, it does have a bit of everything, but there are a lot of cards that sort of counteract each other. Some cards that you probably won't be playing, and yes, these cards do have amber pips on them. We'll start out with amber control, and as always, shadows is at the forefront. We have 2 Breaker Heal. They're 1 power elusive creatures, and each of their neighbours gains action steal 1. Now that's a very good action to have if your opponent always has amber in their pool. If they're ramping, it does mean that you have that option available. What you probably want to do is have its neighbours of the same house, which will allow you to activate both of them on the same turn. They are very susceptible to being pinged though by direct damage or enhancement pips if your opponent is playing Mass Mutation or Dark Tidings. We have an upgrade, Dusk Runner. This creature gains Reap, steal 1 amber. So when you reap, not only do you gain 1 amber, you will steal 1 as well. It is a very nice upgrade. We have 2 Umbra, 2 power with Skirmish with the fight abilities of steal 1. Just remember that Skirmish allows you to attack and you take no damage the first time, meaning that you're always going to pull that fight ability off unless your opponent has Hazardous of 2 or more. Ronnie Wrist Clocks, 2 power. Play, steal 1, but if your opponent has 7 or more amber, you steal 2 instead. It's not you steal 1, and then if they still have 7 amber, you steal another 2. It's you either steal 1, or if they've got 7 or more amber, you will steal 2. We have Fran's Blaster. It's an upgrade. It gives the creature a fight reap ability of deal 2 damage to a creature, or you can attach Fran's Blaster to First Officer Fran. After you attach Fran's Blaster to First Officer Fran, you move each amber from First Officer Fran to your pool. And here is Fran. Fran is a 4 power creature, and they have the ability play, fight, reap. A friendly creature captures 1. With Fran's Blaster in play, you will probably want to capture amber onto Fran, but there are cards that may mean you may not want to do that. There were a couple of cards that I considered amber control that decks of Keyforge didn't, and they are in Logos, and they are Pocket Universe. Pocket Universe is an artifact, and you can spend amber on Pocket Universe when you forge your keys, and then as an action on a Logos turn, you can move 1 amber from your pool to Pocket Universe. I call it more our amber control, so it's not there for our opponent to steal or capture. Yes, they can destroy the artifact, but when they destroy the artifact, any amber on it will go back into the common supply and not to your opponent's pool. It's only amber on creatures that go back into your opponent's pool. And then I put Data Forge in, because it is a key cheat, and it allows you to forge a key outside of the forge a key step. This one says you may forge a key at +10 current cost, reduced by 1 amber for each card in your hand. Now, with some of the artifacts and creatures that we have in this deck, there is a high possibility that we will be able to pull that off in a game. Now, I've just laid out everything in our amber control that can be expected amber for us. So that's mainly the steel. So all the shadows cards that were actually in our amber control were steel. So they are effectively expected amber that we can gain during a game. And I'm going to include Fran's Blaster and Fran in there as well, purely because if you do manage to get Fran's Blaster on Fran, any amber that is on Fran goes into our pool. The only other card that is considered expected amber is the transport platform. Now, I think that is because of the amber pip, but it does mean that you can bounce characters and upgrades attached to them back to your hand. Now, if they're a Star Alliance creature with Star Alliance upgrades, you can obviously play them again, and that is something that is done in most transport or deck platforms. You bounce creatures back, you play them, and you gain the amber pips again. If you're capturing amber onto First Officer Fran, you probably don't want to bounce them back to your hand until you've put that blaster on them. So then you can play First Officer Fran again, they capture an amber, then play the blaster and put that amber straight into your pool. As for artifact control, we only have the Tachyon Pulse. Now, Tachyon Pulse is a really good card because it says play, destroy each artifact. That's yours and your opponent's. Now, in this deck, we're going to lose our transport platform and any of the other 5 artifacts that we have in play. Now, I was talking about that Data Forge. There are 2 artifacts that we would like to remain in play. So playing this card when our artifacts are on the board is not an option. Plus, you will exhaust each creature with an upgrade. So just make sure that if you've got Fran in play with their blaster, you will need to use them first. It would have to be a very powerful artifact or powerful artifacts on my opponent's side of the board for me to consider using this if I had the artifacts in this deck in play. If we look at creature control, we have in Logos the mini group think tank, 3 power, 2 armor, play, fight and reap ability of deal 8 damage to a creature that shares a house with 2 of its neighbors. Now, this is not a you may, it's a you must. So if you have a creature that shares a house with 2 of its neighbors and your opponent doesn't, you will be blasting your own creature with 8 damage. In Shadows, we have the Avinder. 4 power, reap, deal 1 damage to a creature. If it destroys that creature, your opponent discards a random card from their hand. It's disruption. It's very good. We, funnily enough, have Bad Penny, who has the destroyed ability of return Bad Penny to your hand. So a very good target for Avinder there. We have Hit and Run. It's an action, 2 damage to a creature, and then we get to return a friendly creature to our hand. We have some nice creatures we may want to return. First Officer Fran, if you've got the blaster in your hand or it's in play and you want to capture one. We can do Ronnie Wristclocked, which has the play effect of steal 1 amber. So we do have options. We have no safety in numbers. It's an action, you get an amber. 3 damage to each creature that belongs to a house that has 3 or more creatures in play. That's yours and your opponent's. So it is going to affect your battle line as well. And then we have Kymor Eclipse. Shuffle each flank creature into its owner's deck. Again, yours and your opponent's. So this deck, you're going to have to be very vigilant about where you're placing your creatures in your battle line with that group think tank and the Kymor Eclipse if you want to pull them off at optimal time. For Star Alliance, you have 2 zap action and when you play it, you can deal 1 damage to a creature for each house represented among creatures in play. Now, you can split that damage up. So if there are 4 creatures in play, you get to deal 4 damage separated. So you could do 1, 1, 1, 1. You could do 1, 3, 1, 2. It's up to you. Now, there were a few cards that weren't included in creature control. I've put them in purely because they help either destroy your opponent's creatures or keep yours alive. And that is the Medic Ingram, 3 power, play, fight, reap. You may heal 3 damage from a creature and ward it. I don't need to, but you may do it. And then we've got 2 Nurse Soto. They've got deploy, which is really good, which means you can place them anywhere in your battle line. You don't have to put them on a flank. And then play, fight, reap. You heal 3 damage from each of its neighbours. Lieutenant Karkar, I'm going to call them. 5 power taunt, and it's got hazardous 3, so when it is attacked, it will deal 3 damage before the fight takes place. So if your opponent attacks him with a creature that has 3 power or less, it will die before the fight takes place. And then you've got 2 hologramophones there, Logos artifacts with the action Ward a creature. Ward can be very, very annoying, and it does prevent a return to hand. So bear in mind that if you want to use transport a platform on a creature, if it's warded, it will just take the ward off first. So something just to consider. When we look at efficiency in this deck, so can we play cards? Can we draw cards? How do we speed up our deck? So we had Com Officer Kirby in Star Alliance. Play, fight, reap effect if you can play a non-Star Alliance artifact, upgrade or action, not a creature. So artifact, upgrade or action from either Logos or Shadows. We had the Babbling Bibliophile, 1 power with a reap, draw 2 cards, very nice ability, and again would help with that Data Forge. Quant, 3 power reap, you may play 1 non-Logos action card this turn. Again, house cheating. Now we only have 7 actions, so the chance of that happening pretty slim. You've got a lot of creatures, and 6 artifacts is kind of a lot of artifacts for the deck as well. Wormhole Technician, 3 power with the reap ability of reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a Logos card, we play it. Otherwise, we archive it. Now, Logos cards you wouldn't want to draw at the wrong time, probably Data Forge. If you pull that at the wrong time, it's just an Amber Pip. If you pull it at the right time and you have the Amber, all the cards in your hand, you can forge. We had 2 Memory Chip. These are artifacts, and after you choose Logos as your active house, you archive a card from your hand. That is really good. You have both of those on the board and you call Logos. You could archive a Shadows or a Star Alliance card, or possibly the Data Forge from Logos if you don't want to use it right now, and you can start building up your archives. And like we saw, there are other cards that allow you to put cards in your archives, which not only speeds up your deck, but again makes it possible for that Data Forge to kick in. We have Igor. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You add 1 to your hand, you discard the other, so a bit of fishing for your deck there. And then we have Daughter, 2 power elusive. We draw an additional card during our draw card step, so we'll be drawing up to 7, not 6. And then Helmsman's Spears, 2 power, fight, reap. We can discard any number of cards from our hand, and then we draw a card for each card discarded this way. It's going to be on a Star Alliance turn, so maybe we've been forced to play Star Alliance. We can reap, and then if we've got 5 cards in our hand that aren't Star Alliance, we can discard them, and then draw, and hopefully draw into some Star Alliance. I do have a deck from Mass Mutation that has a Legacy Helmsman Spears, because they are not actually in the set, and an auto encoder. So when you pull it off with an auto encoder, you're discarding cards from your hand. You can discard your whole hand. When you do that, you archive 6 cards, and then you draw 6 cards more. So it's a nice little combo that I've found with a Legacy Helmsman Spears. The only negative on our efficiency is going to be that bad penny, because every time we kill it, it comes back to our hand. So it can handlock us a little bit. Disruption. We have that Avinder. So when we kill a creature, by dealing 1 damage on the reap, our opponent discards a random card from their hand. But we've also got the Fidget. 2 power elusive. Very nice reap ability of discard a random card from your opponent's archives, or the top card of their deck. If it's an action card, play it as if it were yours. Now, if you know your opponent is archiving specific cards for a combo, this is a good way of getting them out of their archives and into their discard pile. Be very careful if they've got board wipes and you haven't seen them yet. You don't know if they're in the discard pile, because if you pull one at the wrong time, wipe your board, it can cost you the game. For those of you interested, it is a 62 SAS rated deck, and they consider it the middle 50% of decks according to SAS. I think it's an okay deck. It struggles a little bit with control, especially if you are unable to set your board up with those Shadows creatures. So the Umbras and the Breaker Hills, your opponent will probably outpace you. If you can draw in early to the Logos and the card draw and the memory chips, there is a possibility of pulling off that Data Forge key cheat. I'll put a link in the description to the deck on Keyforge. All that remains for me to say is good luck, have fun, keep forging.